Ahoy and welcome to Raider Cop Nation. I'm your host, Alpha Mike, episode number 52. Now, if we have one show a week, we launch every Wednesday, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play. You got the rundown. Once a week, every Wednesday. How many weeks in a year? And the answer would be, in the back, 52. That's correct. So, this is our anniversary show, so welcome to the anniversary. Now, we were L Police Radio. Now we're Raider Cop Nation. So you can reach us on RaiderCopNation.com. It's as simple as that. We haven't gone anywhere. We changed the name and the browser and the, what do you call that thing? The domain. I'm learning all these things as I go along. The domain now is RaiderCopNation.com. Today's episode 52, we will feature Wonder Woman. And she'll be on here to talk about her great heroics in law enforcement and what we can expect. As well as I'm about to bring on the one and only, the co-host of the Raider Cop Nation and the host of Leatherneck 7. That we haven't heard him on our radio airways in a while, but he's back. And he's back and he's better than ever, and I'm glad to have him back. But before we bring him on, we're going to have a conversation. In our conversation, mostly we're going to talk about his family. You know, there is no coincidence why God created family. He created family because these are the individuals you are going to deal with during your life. Now, we don't have any domain over whom we want to be family members. I'll take him, but I won't take her. Can't do that. So you're basically born into a family, into a race, into a heritage, into the problems that that family brings and the blessings that that family brings. But God has given you something very unique to deal with. Your first assignment in life is how to grow up in a family and what that family means to your development. Christ told us, and it's in the scriptures, even if your mother and your father leave you, I am here. So the Lord himself becomes a parent to us as children in the walk and the journey with Jesus. The best thing to connect with a family is to have a great foundation. So with that foundation, you have solid ground and you can never sink. And that is God as the center of your family. When you have that, when you produce that, when you welcome that in your life and that in the life of your family, your children, and so forth, you are building your structure on solid ground. And that is so important. Recently, I had the opportunity of being with my grandkids and my kids, and I love them all. I love them all to death. My oldest, that's up in Atlanta, God bless her. I know she's going through a time in her life that we all go through, issues. I keep her in prayer, even to the more difficult ones, and they know who they are too. I love them as well. The grandchildren bring a uniqueness because I'm actually getting to see the development of their character and the gifts that God has given them. Those gifts will be developed and it will be part of their personality that God will use. Learning and understanding what family is and the relationship to that family and God is so important. I encourage you to connect a little bit better with that by going to a church, a Bible-driven church that Jesus is the foundation of. And you can learn a lot more about family structure. I know I am so glad that I have family in my life. Yes, and they're difficult ones too. But I've got to take the good with the bad. That's how God wants it. We on Radio Cop Nation now, we have flown the Jolly Roger, or as they say in French, Jolie Rouge, which is where Jolly Roger comes from. And we're captivating, taking captive the truth, the loot, to share with you. You know, I did a little history on pirates and raider and this and that. And I'm going to be slowly letting everybody know a little bit more and more about it. But that's the theme that we have. And the reason we have it is because although we're in law enforcement, we obey the rules and regulations that are established by society through the will of God. We also want to be a raider of the truth. We want to raid that loot. There's so many things that go on in law enforcement behind closed doors, and we want to bring those things to light. So we will blast the cannons, and we will seize the loot slowly, bringing those truths to you here on Radio Cop Nation. You know, there's a lot of fiction when it comes to piracy. And a lot of people believe that the pirates were white Anglo-European types. There were some, but they only it lasted, believe it or not, for about 30 years. It was a very short lifespan. They were contracted by three primary governments, which would be England, France, and the Netherlands. And their job was they would fly a flag that was not the flag of the nation that contracted them. And their job was to steal the loot of gold that Spain would try to bring back to Spain from the New World. Of course, a lot of people think that they flew the skull and bone flag. But the truth is that they mostly flew a red flag. That's what they flew most of the time. And there were some variations to that. Short-lived, did not last very long. As I said, the piracy, and it was during an area of around 1630 to 1690 where the British Navy would, what they called the impressment, they would force people to work for them, and piracy was part of it, and to seize territory and goods. A lot of the goods that they were stealing was not necessarily gold and treasures, more so food and medicine. But those are the myths that exist, and they're out there. Of course, if you look at piracy, it goes way 1,000 years prior. During the era of the samurai, they had pirates too, which were wuku. They were called the wuku. And they were samurai warriors that were on naval ships, and they would attack fishing boats and so forth in vicinity of Japan. And they were around 1,000 years. 1,000 years. So piracy is not something unique, that it's only a bunch of drunken guys with beards. That is the myth that was brought to it, to us, through television, through theater, and through the movies, that we understand what piracy is. Of course, the United States government fought pirates, and I got to get my P's straightened there, doing a campaign in the Barbary Islands, which is the north of Africa. And as the podcasts go on, I'll discuss more about pirates and the raider aspect and what that all means. It's always, I firmly believe in history. Unfortunately, some of it is so mixed up that true history is not really told anymore. It's whatever political agenda they want to come up with. Sad, but true. Now, folks, let me put on this theme and let you guess who's coming on. In 3, 2, 1. Mike Sierra.
Hey, Alpha, it's good to be back, and I'm loving the name change, man. Raider Cop Nation, from El Police Radio to Raider Cop Nation. I see the growth, man, and I'm very excited to see where you guys are headed in the upcoming months.
Well, you know, the analytics have been pretty good. I think it's a combination of things, especially the logo. You know, before I kicked in the name, I did all this research on logos and what color the eye looks. I thought I was going to get a degree in logoism. So I finally figured out the combination that I was going to go with. And the analytics have been coming in pretty strong. So things look pretty good. And I like the name change. You know, unfortunately today, anything that says police is like a 4-letter word.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So I think it was time to move on. We've had that. We've had, or at least I've had that association with that name since 2007. So that's about 11 years.
Yeah, we're talking 11 years now.
Yeah, so it's time. It was time to move on. So how's everything with you?
Everything's, the same old, just focusing on, I'm doing the best I can on my end with Leatherneck 7. Trying to bring in fresh guests, fresh topics to talk about, because at least on the good side of being a veteran is that there's always something going on with the veterans and the veteran world. So there's always, it's either an event going off, for wounded warriors or for service animals or whatever it is. I noticed that I can always find myself getting into something when it comes in regards to the veterans world, and I'm sure it's the same in the Leo and the fire communities, which is why we are such a tight-knit community, because, you're literally in the front lines with your partner, and that's all you got. And if you look at what's going on with, law enforcement these days from a few years ago, it almost seems like the country's at war with its own police officers. And, you got to stop and reflect on that and say, well, something's terribly wrong with this picture.
Yeah, it is. It's horrible, but the good thing is we're at the right time at the right place now, because we have a president that is supporting not only the veterans but law enforcement as well. And although law enforcement is still having a struggle because the media is doing their best to destroy law enforcement, it's good to have a friend in the White House that helps out. It always does. So I'm glad that exists.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I know my time in the military. A lot of us don't agree with who's our commander in chief, but as a uniform personnel or combat arms or whatever your specialty was, there's still a chain of command, and there's still a rank structure that you're still obligated to follow. So regardless of what my views was of the previous, cabinet or whatever, at the end of the day, you still had to respect that's the office, the president's
Correct.
office. It doesn't matter who's behind the helm. That's the president of the United States, and he renders his salute. You gotta give him a salute, because his due diligence is the president.
Correct.
So again, like a lot of people didn't like Obama, and just like a lot of people don't like Trump. But at the end of the day, we're all in the same country. We're all red, white, and blue. So it really doesn't matter, because everybody gets so caught up in politics, and I'm left, you're right, I'm far left, I'm way far right. But they lose sight of, it doesn't matter what your affiliation is. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. We're all in the same family. Whether, it doesn't matter what your color, your background is, your religious whatever your beliefs are. At the end of the day, if you're in this country, you're an American, and that's a blessing, because not a lot of countries out there in the world can do what America has been doing for so many years. So people need to stop focusing on being against the president and be for America. So as long as we're going to heading in the right direction and the country's progressing, that's all that matters.
Yeah, this nation was built by the Lord. It is a blessing to all of us. There's no doubt about it. And, I just recently learned that there was a little static, a little situation between President George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Actually, Jefferson was president at the time, and Washington had already stepped aside or fulfilled his obligation. And they were going back and forth on having an actual sitting Navy. So this is the beginning of creating the Navy. And it was kept a secret. It was not really sent out in the forefront. It came out recently in a history book. That's where I got it from. And I'll post it on the show notes so people can buy it and pick it up. But basically there was an aide to President George Washington that basically also becomes an aide to Thomas Jefferson, and he kind of negotiates the two. But there was a little, I'm not talking to you because you're going in the wrong direction, that kind of thing. So it's that you don't learn those things in the history books. We'll just say that.
No, without a doubt. I mean, this is a time where, America was just being born. George Washington was the first president, and there really was no term limits on how long these guys can be president. Like George Washington was pretty much up there until he got tired of it.
Yeah, the discussion was mostly about creating an army, a naval force. We have to understand the time this is happening. They just got rid of the British and that military power, so they didn't want a standing military. But Washington had a little bit more foresight to say, we're going to need this. So there was a little tit for tat with how that was going to happen.
Well, fast forward now to 2018, and now, the talks are all about, why the U.S. doesn't have a space force in play, and how important the space program and the space exploration and all that comes into play, because, it's going to come a point in our lives, those of us that are still around when all this finally, gets created, that the wars and the battles aren't going to be fought in our homelands or, foreign territory. It's going to be out there, because there's so much more that they can do out there now, and the advances that they've made in technology, and it's some scary stuff. So a lot of people are taking the whole Space Force thing as a joke, but when you start looking at the numbers and history, you start saying, holy crap, this is something that we definitely need.
Yeah. I was out there like thousands, if not millions of Americans making jokes about the Space Force. But when you look at the seriousness, I saw James Mathis the other day on a press conference talking about how and when he talks, you immediately snap to attention and listen.
Yeah, you listen.
So
eyes are snapped, ears open.
And right. And so he was giving the briefing on where we're going with this. And so you take the seriousness. It is very serious. So I'm glad that we're but look, you're right. There's a little tit for tat for that now. Congress doesn't want to fund it, and so 200 and something years later, we're still at it.
And that's gonna always it's always gonna be, and people can be against war and against violence, but it's been around for even before a lot of us were even born. So that's something that's never gonna change.
Yeah, it's never gonna change. It's always an argument. But I'm glad that we have this form of democracy. You vote for the guy you want, they get in, and like you said, you have to respect the office, not necessarily the person. The Constitution was never done with an individual in mind. Yeah. It was done with a nation in mind. So there falls the difference. We recently had a little trip to Disney World, and it was great seeing Superboy and Batgirl. They were there having a great time. And, boy, was it hot. I mean, I was melting.
Yeah, we got lucky that it was a lot of more, I guess, there was a lot more cloudy than we expected. And the forecast was to rain. So, we already had that in the back of our minds. But like you said, even without the sun gleaming on you, you still feel the heat. The kids were feeling it. We were feeling it. But We did pretty good. I mean, we got there right before 1, and we left right at 9, right when the fireworks were ending. So we did everything good. The kids had a great time. There's nothing more beautiful than seeing a bunch of little cousins playing with each other, holding hands, just being kids. And that's what life's all about when you have children in your lives is just seeing them interact with other kids, whether it be siblings, cousins, whatever it might be, just letting them experience life and experience those relationships. And it's amazing. And it's beautiful to watch.
That's right. The other Marvel Comics grandkids of mine were there, which is Catgirl and Super Rubia. I don't have a name for her yet, but I'll call her Super Rubia for now.
Yeah.
And they enjoyed each other's company. It's great to see them. They're little. We had taken them about a couple of years ago to Disney. We took a couple photos. 2 years later, we're taking photos in the same spot. It's good because see they're growing, they're getting bigger, they're interacting more with us. So it was fun. It really was. The humidity was outrageous, but it was fun. And
yeah, at least we didn't get rained on. I mean, we were right inside right when it started raining, so like everything went as smooth and perfect. Obviously everybody got sick afterwards, but what are you gonna do? Germs are everywhere. We can't control that.
Yeah, the germs are all over the place. There's a lot of touch this and touch that at Disney World. So you pick up.
You don't ever see anybody cleaning or deconning anything. It's just too much to handle, and I don't blame them.
It is too much, but it was fun. We did avoid the rain. We were in Monsters Inc. watching the show there, where Superhero Boy got a kick out of me on the big screen.
Yeah,
they used me as the hit. I don't know what you want to call me.
Fall guy.
Yeah, the fall guy. They threw my picture up on the board, and he thought it was funny, and he was just cracking up, hysterical. It was a moment to cherish. That was great.
It definitely is, and it's just even as adults, it's amazing how you can lose yourself in such a positive and happy environment, because it really is the happiest place on earth every time. And at least for me, every time I go with my kids every weekend, we have a great time.
It is. You do unwind. Once you go through those gates and you go into the park, I don't care how old you are, you kind of regress a little bit and you become a child for a little bit. Yeah.
It's and let me tell you, it's a process to get in there with 2 kids.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a group or if you have a service animal, people don't remember that. Yeah, it's a lot of work just to take your kids to Disney, or just for you to go by yourself. It's a lot of stuff you have to plan. It's never going to go according to plan, but at the end result is to have a good time, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I can attest to that. It is very difficult to take little ones there. And I was on duty too with the carrying. And when you're carrying a child in a 40-minute line, it could be, I don't care how much they weigh. After a while, it turns into a gazillion pounds.
Yeah, literally.
And then you put one down and you look down and the other one's stretching their arms about, I'm next.
Yeah, they're waiting. It's just funny how they were all, rotating everybody. All right, I had enough of this person. Let me get the next person.
That's true. But what we're going to be enjoying on this show now on Raider Cop Nation, we have a panel. And these guests are going to come on, and we're going to use their expertise. And today's show, which we're celebrating our first anniversary, I remember when we first launched El Police Radio, we got hit with the hurricane.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what the hurricane's name was. And we got hit with the hurricane, and it kind of threw us off schedule a little bit, if you want to say that. But that was a year ago. And now we're refocused. We're bringing in a year later, and this would be our second season on the podcast. We're bringing in the guest panel of 5 guests that we have, which will be regulars on this show. And we're going to tap in their expertise on certain subjects, certain episodes. They're going to come on. I believe right after this show, we start with training. We start doing firearms. So Pistol Pete will be on here. And, of course, he's going to be telling us gun cleaning tips and stuff like that. So it's going to be a great podcast to pay attention to, because a lot of people have their own idea on how to clean a gun. But it's
have your
always,
notepads ready.
Yeah, have your notepads ready. It's always good to get it from an expert. So that's Pistol Pete. But we'll be putting all that on the show notes. And what I'm really looking forward to this show is because these people they were all handpicked, and they all have unique skills. Out of the bunch, out of the five, two are active law enforcement. One with 30 years, and the other one, I believe, is 11 years. And then the other panelists are retired. So we have a lot of wealth of information on there, and we're going to really make it interesting for the audience on these subjects, because one of the things, if you haven't noticed, we don't use our real names, but they're not very difficult to find out who we are, because obviously there's a website and all that other stuff. But the reason we do that is because we can capture the truth in a different way. You know, if I were to come out here like a public relations for a law enforcement agency, I would sound like a commercial. But we don't want to sound like a commercial. So this coming season, we're going to talk about a lot of issues in law enforcement, which the behind closed doors things that people don't know about. And that's what I hope to capture during this season. So it's going to be interesting. And in this show, we're going to be interviewing Wonder Woman. That's right.
Wonder Woman, huh?
Wonder Woman. It's all our characters have names, but we have Wonder Woman. Of course, we have Pistol Pete, the gunsmith. So with him, if you want to learn anything about guns, if you see Pistol Pete's name come up, then it's time to say, oh, I got to learn about guns. Let me get my notepad and my pencil, because I'm going to learn about guns. And we got the Fixer, and we also have Kilo, which he does investigations. So he's going to talk to us about the world of investigation. The Cop. So you have old school policing. And he's going to reference a lot of old school policing versus new school policing. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be one in here because, man, I remember the old schools. These guys will throw down bare knuckles in brawls, and now I'm looking at videos of these new, fresh out of the academy boot cops, and they don't even want to put hands on anybody. Like, they're that afraid, and I'm like, what the hell happened in a matter of years?
Yeah, I interviewed the cop last podcast, and we did 2 hours, and it wasn't a 2-hour interview, but we just rambled on for 2 hours, and then we did the interview. And I forgot that he had served in Iraq in the International Police Force through the United States Department. And he told me some wacky stories about that. And he also served in Kosovo in the International Police Force. So I believe it was a total of 3 years he did it. And he was telling me a lot of stories that we can enjoy here. So
because if you think the police family is extreme in the United States, which they're not, try going to a third world country or a foreign country and seeing their nationals interact with their local police, and you'll be like, holy crap, we're spoiled here back in the States.
Yeah, we are. So
these other countries, they don't play when it comes to law enforcement.
No, they don't. And of course, they don't have the Constitution like we do. A lot of our criminals have a lot of rights. Of course, you wouldn't believe it if you heard the news, but they do. And the law is somewhat on their side, the way we're structured, innocent until proven guilty. And some of these other countries is the other way around. You're guilty until you prove you're innocent.
Exactly.
So that's crazy. So I'm looking forward to that interview, and I know that we will. We're going to turn some heads on this podcast this season, and I invite everybody to come on here and listen to us. We will have. I have a schedule up on. Well, our website has changed too. So if you're typing in lpoliceradio.com, you're not going to see anything but Chinese writing probably. Yeah. What an adventure that was to convert everything.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh, my. I thought, the little bit of hair I got left, I thought that was going also.
So, yeah, now we know why they charge so much.
Yeah, it was difficult, but it was manageable, just frustrating. But I let lpoliceradio.com irma.com go. And the way they explain it to me is it stays active for 30 days. It's like in the Twilight Zone type of limbo type of status. And then if I don't purchase it or repurchase it, better said, somebody will buy it. And usually it's a company in China. And then they try to extort somebody if you want it back. Oh, you can have it back for $1,400, that kind of thing.
Wow.
But we won't be wanting it back. So if you punch in lpoliceradio.com, nothing's going to happen. Now it's RaiderCopNation.com. And that's all one word, RaiderCopNation.com. So we got that converted. And then I had to go through the iTunes, Stitcher, all that stuff. Wow, that was quite a treat also. Apparently, iTunes is everybody follows iTunes model.
Yeah, pretty much.
They are the king of podcasts. Everybody else is...
they just piggyback off of them.
They piggyback off of them. So once you get the thumbs up from iTunes, and then, everybody else kind of rolls in. But iTunes, what I appreciate about iTunes is they did not want me to lose my other shows. I was to a point where I didn't care, because I was so frustrated. But iTunes, they automatically change the name, and they do like a redirect of the old shows, combining them with the new shows. So Stitcher and everybody else has to follow the lead. And I'm glad they did, because it took a lot of the worrying out of me. So we haven't lost one episode. You can get from episode 1 to this one.
Yeah, got to keep them alive in the archives.
So I'm glad that worked out too. A lot of learning as we go along in this field, and we are hoping that real soon we're going to be starting our 09 training group as well, and we're going to be primarily focusing in on firearms and teaching how to shoot and different tactical forms of shooting, especially in today's society with everything going crazy and school just starting. And we know that schools now, they're the hot topic. But unfortunately, there could be another soft target from a terrorist or a wacko, and then that'll be the next hot topic. So
look at what was it, Sheriff Judd from Polk County the other day. What he said was on point. He's like, you play stupid games, you're gonna win stupid prizes. Especially in Florida, we have the stand your ground law. Just a few days ago, there was an incident where an Uber driver was being harassed by some crazy person in a truck, and the Uber driver just got out and just shot him.
Yeah,
he's dead. That guy's dead now. So the sheriff just kept saying, don't go harassing people, because a majority of the people in Florida are carry permit. They have the right and the license to carry a firearm to protect themselves. And if you don't know the laws in the state of Florida, whether it's stand your ground or protection, you need to start looking into it, because you're going to put yourself in a situation for trying to be a jackass. You're going to end up getting shot for no reason.
Yeah, and I loved Sheriff Judd. Grady Judd, he does a real good performance when he comes out on TV.
He's always fun to watch. He's always fun to watch on his press conferences. I'm like, I can't wait. Got to get the popcorn ready. Got to get the DVR. Just the stuff he says, it's not in the norm. People are not used to it, but it's working because he's been sheriff for so long. And Polk County is really bad. I drive through there all the time on my way to Orlando with the kids to go to Disney, and I just see it. You see it yourself. You're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
But I think they're doing a very good job, at least as far as policing their communities goes.
Well, half of what he's doing is PR work, and you need it. And basically, he's sending a message to everybody. Don't fool around here, because you're going to get it. And even with this Uber story, he told everybody they are good guys with guns that will shoot you and shoot you dead.
And have every right to do so by the law.
Yeah. But the way he says it, it's just, I love it. I love it. I mean, the guy has his own cheerleading squad. I love it. And I also recommend anybody that's listening, if you are a carrying concealed weapons permit or you're considering one, it's only half the package. You also have to look at unfortunately, some insurance to cover yourself in case you have to use your weapon. So look at places like the NRA that they have an insurance package, the USCCA as well. And it's unfortunate, but if you discharge your weapon for whatever means that you can legally do so to protect yourself or others, most likely these liberal attorneys will go after you and they'll sue you. And so you have to have more than one protection, which is a firearm. You have to have two protections, which is also an insurance package. As sad as that sounds, that's the reality today.
That's the world that we live in, you know. Yeah, there was a case not too long ago where there was a perpetrator that was stabbing an police officer, I believe it was. I'm not sure the correct story, but he was stabbing somebody. I'm pretty sure it was a law enforcement personnel. And then the backup came. They shot the guy, but he ended up suing them for shooting him because he just had a knife. So that's something that I want to look into so that we can talk about. But that's the reality of it. That these criminals are finding ways to, you know, turn up the law and use it against those that uphold the law, and it's disgusting, you know. Like, oh, I'm breaking the law, I'm killing somebody, but then they shoot me, so I have the right to sue them. Like, that's not right. That's not right in my eyes.
Yeah, I know what case you're talking about. I did see that, and it is controversial the way the jury had come up with that verdict, and the way the whole case was handled was a little wacky. They said that he shot him twice, so he should have shot him once. And there's no such thing as shooting once. You know, if you speak to any person that's ever discharged a firearm in action, and you ask them how many rounds did you shoot, they don't know. It's the science is there to prove. You just don't count rounds. You don't say, I shot 5 times. I know I did. So I counted them. Are you crazy? Your finger's just moving on the trigger. I've seen people that say, I don't know, did I shoot 3 or 4 times? And they were on their second magazine. Okay, so there's no way that jury came up with that. And now all of a sudden it's kind of controversial. It's the wacky left trying to control the narrative again. But I think you're onto something, Mike. I think we need to put that in when we have our gunsmith and our other expert, Kilo, come up here and we talk about guns. And let's talk a little bit about that background of what we know, because, of course, what we know is going to be whatever was released to the media. We don't have the backdoor stuff. But yeah, we can come up with a good synopsis. And I think that's a very good thing to look at. So we're coming down to our interview with Wonder Woman.
Very exciting.
And I'm looking forward to it, so I think it's time to plug her in. What do you think?
I think it's about time.
All right, well, let's call the wait a minute. Batman has a flashlight or a light that how do you call Wonder Woman? I don't know.
Just find trouble.
Yeah, I guess you find trouble and then the little whip thing comes up and next thing you know, okay, well, here's Wonder Woman.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, actually.
Well, it could be morning, afternoon. Remember, the beauty about this whole thing is that it is a podcast, so you get to hear it whenever you want to hear it.
That makes sense.
I was just talking to Mike Sierra, and we were discussing how do we alert Wonder Woman. You know, Batman has a light, so when there's trouble, you flash the light, and Batman sees it and shows up. So we were like, we don't know. How do you... I don't know. I don't remember either. And he says, I guess we got to stir up trouble. And she just shows up. So I think that's how we contact you.
Yes, that's how you contact me.
With controversy.
Stir up some trouble somewhere and I'll just show up.
There you go. Now, our audiences, you have a great intro. They like the intro. So
I was waiting for the intro. That's why when you asked me the first time, I just stood by quietly waiting for the intro, and then I didn't hear any intro.
Yeah, on your end, you're not gonna hear it, but it was a crashing glass entrance, so you smashed into the radio program.
Okay.
So we're happy to hear you smashed right through the window. So we're happy to have you here. Now, everybody wants to know a little bit about Wonder Woman. Now, before we get into all that, where did Wonder Woman grow up? What part of the planet?
What part of the planet? Well, I'm sort of like a mutt. I've been everywhere. I was born in Venezuela. I was there for a very short time. My parents are Dominican, so I went to live with my grandmother in Dominican Republic for a few years. My mom and dad stayed in Venezuela, and from there they moved to the United States. And on my 8th birthday, they sent for me. So I was raised in the Bronx up until I was 21. And then I moved to Florida, and I've been here ever since.
So you're a Bronx bomber.
You can say that.
You're a Bronx bomber.
Always making an explosion.
I was right across the river. I was on the Manhattan side of the Bronx. So
okay.
There's the actual river there that separates them. All right, now, Wonder Woman grows up, all these places, of course, this is Wonder Woman's makeup now. She's very unique, so this is how they built Wonder Woman. And now she's thinking about a career in law enforcement. How does that happen?
I was 12 years old, growing up in the Bronx, and I remember they had a career day. And I was like probably 10, 11 or 12 years old. And on that career day, they had obviously all of the different entities, the companies, the different, careers and whatnot. So the first one that I encountered when I walked in, they had a table full of New York police officers. And that to me was, I don't know if it was the uniform, just their stature, just the way they were, dealing with people. It was so amazing to me. And I walked in, and that was the first table, and we had like a single file line, and everybody walked away, and the teachers are calling me, hey, you're the last one on the line. Come on, come on. And I'm standing there like dumbfounded by these people. And they're looking at me, and I didn't want to go anywhere. And one of them turns around and goes, hey, you want to be a cop? And I looked at him and I was like, no, I want to go into the military like my dad. But because my dad served in the Army. So he was like, okay, well, you can start here or whatever. And my teacher's still calling me, come on, come on. I said, I'm not going anywhere. I want to stay with them here. Sure enough, I stayed there throughout the whole career fair, helping them out. And for me, that was just like it, the moment. Right. So I looked into other options. My dad never wanted me to go into the military. I tried Navy, Marines. I tried Coast Guard. I tried the Army branch. And he's like, nope. You're going to school. You're going to college. I don't want you to go into the military. But I always wanted to take part in some sort of either law enforcement, military. And in college, this whole FBI thing, I was like, oh, I want to go into the FBI. But it didn't happen. I got married very young, and I was a stay-at-home mom for many years. So I kind of put a stop and a hold to my career. And at 33, that's when my kids were older. So I figured I'd continue. By that time, I was too old for the military. I was too old to go into the FBI. So I went into another career fair in my 30s at Florida International University. And sure enough, I walk in, and the first table there
there you go.
Is, some things are just meant to be,
Yeah.
And I walk in, and the first table there is, they have Miami-Dade Police Department, and they had City of Miami. So I tried out for Miami-Dade, went through the whole process, did not get in. And then I tried out for City of Miami after that. And shortly thereafter, I got into law enforcement. So that's how that happened.
That's it. Then, so they pick up Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
They don't know it, but they've picked.
They don't know it yet.
They've picked up Wonder Woman in the ranks. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, for me, New York. I think when I was growing up in New York, it also had an impact on me. Mm-hmm. Seeing, I live right behind the police precinct when I was a kid. So I'd see the cops there all the time. And I see the roll call when they would change. And, the cops used to walk the beat back then. I don't even think they do that anymore. And they asked, they would always tell me, "You staying out of trouble, kid?" and all this other stuff. And it had a profound effect on me. So
Of course.
I think it's similar stories. So we're here on Raider Cop Nation, and I was telling Mike Sierra that the uniqueness about this series that we're doing in series number 2, this is our anniversary. We're kicking off our second series, and this one is going to be with a 5 guests, which are permanent guests, Wonder Woman being one of them. What do you want to bring on this dais of superheroes that we're forming here?
I think for the most part, as a woman, I just want to bring, because again, you have the community that is made up of, men, women in law enforcement and other different careers. But just to bring, the notion that doesn't matter what happens in your life, it doesn't matter what you've been through, it doesn't matter, the ups and downs that you've had, and the stumbling blocks that your life has given you. You still can be who you want to be, make it to where you want to make it to, and through the struggles and through everything that's happened in your life, you can actually make that work better for you in the end, and just accomplish whatever it is that you need to. And I think that a lot of the things that we go through in life just make you a better person. They make you stronger, wiser, more mature, and they give you the mental strength, the physical strength, emotionally, to be able to pursue your dreams. And that's basically what I want to bring out. And a lot of people say, well, why Wonder Woman and why this and why that? I've loved Wonder Woman since I was a child. But it's just what she symbolizes, love and perseverance and diligence and dedication, and always seeing things through. And even though things are not going the way they should go, she's always looking for a way to make things happen, through love and showing affection and caring.
Right.
She finds a way to make things happen. And as a woman, I think sometimes we think that, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do this, or I'm not going to be able to do that. I don't have the physical or emotional or mental, capacity to do this. But again, everything starts with a belief, faith, and Wonder Woman again is all about that, her faith in humanity and her faith in herself. So that's what comes first. And then after that, you develop, your thoughts become your words, and your words become your actions. So you have to mentally see it through. And then obviously everything else just falls into place.
So a lot of the Wonder Woman's touch is going to be the emotional aspect, and emotional aspect in dealing in law enforcement, because let's face it, the community's relationship with police are not the best in the world. Mm-hmm. And that as a result, because most of the time when they call police is because a tragedies happen in their life.
Uh-huh.
So there has to be that magical Wonder Woman touch in order to bring the citizen around, I guess. So
I guess, just a touch for humanity and people in general around you. And, people can see that when people, and obviously we'll get into it later, but when you work the streets and when you work with people, it's just they will react to who you are, and they will react to who you represent, and if you show that gentleness and, that you are a human being, an emotional human being, and that you're just a human being and you're able to see, life through their eyes, by taking time to be sensitive to people's lives, then I think people's reactions will be differently. Obviously, media has a lot to do with the negative feedback that law enforcement is getting today, but you can't really pay attention to that. You have to go out there and you have to develop a personal relationship with people so they can see, what law enforcement is really about. And we all have to do that. Not just 1 or 2 or 3 people, but law enforcement in general has to be able to develop that tact with people and citizens. Otherwise, it's just, media's going to win.
Right. Media one. And to piggyback on what you said earlier, making an impact as it was made upon you as a child. So when you're interacting with the community, children are very special because you want to make a positive impact when you deal with them.
Yes, of course.
See, that's
what it's all about.
That's the magic touch of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot, there's a lot. But yes, obviously that's what you bring to the community. I had something that happened to me the other day. So in my car, I make my car my personal space. I have, badges, and I have stickers, and I have stuff stuck to the ceiling of my car. Obviously, nobody sees them because they're like stuck on the ceiling.
Right.
Unless you get in the car, you won't be able to see it.
And you don't want to get in the car.
People don't want to get in the car. And I have I had a Wonder Woman teddy bear. It was like a bunny rabbit, and it was all dressed up in Wonder Woman outfit. And I have like a lot of things in my car, souvenirs. So I was driving the other day, and they were like a pair of twins, boy and a girl. They must have been like 5 or 6 years old. And they saw me driving by, so they're waving, and I stopped, and they had their parents with them. So I stopped, and I was talking to them, and they were like, "Oh my God, the police is talking to me." Mm-hmm. So they were super excited, and, I carried them, and I'm like, "You want to go in my car?" So I put them both in my car, and they went crazy.
They went nuts.
They went nuts. So I ended up losing a lot of the stuff I had in my car.
It's hard. How can you say no to them?
I lost a lot of items, including my my Wonder Woman bunny, and I had a Build-A-Bear workshop police officer. Yeah, so I ended up losing a lot of teddy bears and stuff I had in my car. So every time I drive to the community and the kids see me, I always stop. You want to go to my car? And I take pictures. And so my car is like little by little. So whoever wants to donate any more souvenirs, because I'm kind of falling short, please let me know. Souvenirs are welcome. And that's what I do, but they get to know you, and they know who you are, and they're not afraid of you. And, this negative concept that people have of the media is like, it goes out the window. They're like, oh my God, I didn't know. Another time I stopped, and I was having lunch at this restaurant, and, some tourists stopped by. Hey, can we take pictures? Can my son take pictures with you in the car? I said, yeah, sure. And there's actually someone standing by just looking at what's going on. And after they leave, he comes up to me. He goes, you know what? Great community policing. Mm-hmm. I don't like cops very much, but that really impacted me. So it's things like that, you know what? I got to keep doing it. People have to keep doing it. And don't get me wrong. When it's time for me to be a cop, I'm a cop. And right. If I have to, throw you on the floor and put the cuffs on, I don't care. Like, I'll do it. But you're not that person. That's not who you are. You just do it because you're doing your job, and you need to be safe, and you need to cuff people, and you need to get into fights, and you do what you do. But that's not who you are as a person. So you need to let people see who you are. You can't be grouchy and upset at the world and miserable and, just a negative human being, because that's what you portray and that's what you show people in the street.
I think you touched on a very important part about being nasty. In other words, bringing your personal problems to the workplace. And I think in law enforcement, it can happen very easily that we treat people as objects and not as people. My favorite saying is go out there and meet a new friend, make friends. And if you're a human being and you act like a human being, it makes life a lot easier. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that there's times you have to put on your superhero costume, okay, because you're dealing with bad people.
Yes.
But that's not all the time. And so you've touched on a very important point. I want to close out the interview. Yeah. So we have this segment called Double Tap. And on Double Tap, we ask 2 questions. And you basically tell me off the top of your head, are you for the position, against it, and, of course, why? Mm-hmm. So here we go. Question number 1.
Go ahead.
Are you for more law enforcement podcast? For, against, and why?
For And because it brings about a positive image of law enforcement to the people listening. We have to use all sorts of means to get our message across. If we don't put the message across, media will put the message across, and sometimes their message is not positive. So we got to get ahead of the game and put our message out first. That's how social media works, and that's how the news environment works. I've worked with the media. I've worked as a public information officer, and I've learned that if you don't put your message out first, somebody else will, and it's not going to be all the time positive. So yes, I'm completely for more law enforcement podcasts.
And I want to touch on what you just said. And you said basically you want to bring out that message first and how important it is. And I agree with you. But I also want to say I've noticed a lot, especially on Facebook, a lot of the older retired guys, when they see law enforcement interacting with the community, like coffee with a cop or some dance routine that they're doing, they become very irritated. And they want to kind of associate their law enforcement experience and their era with today. And there is a difference. There is a difference.
If I can opinionate on that, again, no one is wrong for doing policing the way that they did it. Times have changed, and policing back then was different. Me being raised in New York, I remember, cops were tough, and so were criminals, but they respected the police. So I remember, living in the Bronx in a corner with fights breaking out. The cops arrived. Everybody would just sit on the floor. And if an officer told you, you need to sit down on the floor, you sat down. You didn't question. You didn't do any of that. Okay. So today, a cop tells you need to sit on the floor, and automatically I'm like, yeah, but why? And this and that and this. Things happen. Okay, because of the lack of disrespect in law enforcement. The generation is completely different than when we were growing up. And yes, things used to happen back then that are still happening now. But it's a matter of, okay, how has times changed, and how can I adapt to the times to make people understand that this is what law enforcement is today? Because they're not understanding. They're believing the media. The media is it's why law enforcement, it is what it is today. Okay, the lack of respect for the police, the shootings, and there's so many things going on now that you need to get a hold. The reason that it's happening is because we're not putting the message out there first. We've become a society of community policing. Now we have to integrate with the community. We have to interact with them. We have to talk to them. We have to bring them out of this idea that law enforcement is full of monsters. Because it's not. How do you do that? By personalizing policing. Okay, social media is what's giving us this bad name. So we have to use social media to take back our good name. Right. It's just the way the times work. It's just the way that, they don't understand social media. They don't understand, you need to do policing this way. It doesn't, that doesn't happen like that anymore. Times have changed, and they have to understand that. If they don't understand that, it's because they are, they've been out of policing for 20, 30 years or whatever it is, and they're just not understanding. So you can't worry about those people's opinions. Listen, I respect the way you used to do policing. That doesn't make me lesser of a cop, but I do understand that we're living in different communities, different times, different generations, and I have to make them understand the only way they know how, and it's through social media.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Just because you see me dancing a song or doing whatever doesn't mean I'm less of a cop, but doesn't mean that you're tougher than me because your face is serious and you won't even smile. Mm-hmm. Let me smile. Let me do whatever it is I'm doing. But I bet you that if, an emergency call breaks out and I have to take care of business, I'm going to take care of business. Yeah. Again, one thing doesn't accentuate the other. They're very different things. I will be a cop whenever I need to be, but I will continue to be a human being. And society needs to see that part of us. There are human beings. They hurt just like me. They have family just like me. They have fun. They laugh. They enjoy the moment just like me. They're not that different. But if I'm a criminal and I just did something wrong, then I might just see another side. Yeah. And that's all it is.
I agree that there is a difference in police styles. And the old timers did not have to deal with what the new timers have to deal with, and that is phones, cell phones.
Oh, that's another thing. Let's not even talk about that.
Cell phones, and you'll be the 1 millionth hit on YouTube if you do something wrong, where in their career they might not have dealt with that. I know during my career early on, I believe it was in the 92, 93, whenever it was, around there, Rodney King. That was the first time law enforcement had to deal with somebody videotaping them. It had never really happened up until then, and the media ran with it, and we know what the issue with Rodney King, how that disturbed the community, and riots and everything else happened as a result of it. So great answer, and I agree with you 100%. All right, question number 2. Of course, the media is always working a good story. And lately, the issue with the football players in the NFL not standing for the national anthem. So the question is, do you support standing for the national anthem in sporting events, or any event really, for, against, and why?
I support respect. So if standing for the national anthem shows respect to this lovely country that, God has allowed us to live in, then I will stand for the national anthem. If kneeling for the national anthem takes away from that respect and causes animosity and causes fights and arguments and hatred and a lot of the things that are happening because of it, then no, I don't agree. Now, if you're kneeling because of some sort of respectful act where it's going to bring about peace and love and just people coming together and people, then obviously do it, because we need to do whatever we need to do to bring about that peace and change and all of the good things that we need. But if it's not, then no, I don't support it. I'm not against people and their freedom of speech. But when your freedom of speech causes chaos and fights and wars and disagreements, then we got to look into that and think about what we're doing, because we're defeating the purpose.
Right.
But I guess it's a matter of opinion. And yes, I'm all about respect. It's like right now in our roll call rooms, we're having a little discussion between some supervisors and other supervisors. Some supervisors, old timers, don't want the officers to wear their hats in roll call. The younger supervisors, which they're in their 20s and got promoted, they don't mind. They're like, listen, who cares? Me particularly, I was raised, I'm going to be 44 years old. So I'm like, no, you need to take it off because it's a form of respect. You're in roll call, take off your hat. Shows respect. If the chief of police or anybody walks in, what are you going to do? I'm sure you're going to take your hat off. Why are you taking your hat off? Because the chief just walked in. So if the chief just walked in and you need to take your hat off, why not take your hat off at roll call? So we're kind of going back and forth on this. Well, this is what respect means, and that is what respect means, and who cares? And listen, as long as it doesn't cause fights, arguments, disagreements, bombings, and everything else that we see nowadays, then yes, you do have liberty and freedom of speech. But if what you're doing is causing negative results from what you thought it would, then no, I'm not going to support it. And respect is respect. Different countries have different forms of showing respect. You go to another country, you eat someone's food and you burp.
Right.
That's, oh my God, my food was awesome. You don't burp, and it's an insult to that culture because you're letting them know that your food sucked.
Right.
So it's just respect is a matter of opinion in a lot of people's minds. My thing is, what actions is it going to bring after we take the action we take? And
of course, we live in a melting pot where a lot of ethnicities, a lot of different people live, and of course, a lot of people have to deal with a lot of issues. And the military doesn't have this problem because they're military. When you walk into a building, you have to take off your cover. Mike Sierra's not here, so I think I'll mention it. And there's no debate about it. But in paramilitary, okay, I can see where the discussion is coming in. But I'm sure if the agency wants everybody to take their hat off, they're going to take their hat off.
Exactly. I think it needs to be a form of, this is the rule. This is the standard. This is how we're going to do it. And that's it. But if you don't have something in writing where you will take your cover off then you really can't force people to do it.
Right. Of course.
Okay. So if you want them to take their hats off, you're just saying it because that's your personal opinion, because you've been in the department for 25, 30, almost 40 years. And this is, again, times have changed.
Yeah.
And 20, 30 years ago, God forbid, a commanding officer walked into a room and you had your cover on. But a lot of those people were military, were in the Marines. So they brought this over from, again, a military institution. Mm-hmm. So now a lot of us there are not former military. Right. We're just like, okay, well, I was just a stay-at-home mom, and I just came and, like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm kind of like a little confused here, but, I personally stand for the national anthem.
Well, there you have it, folks. Wonder Woman is standing for the national anthem. And also she's standing for respect and the ability to respect others is very, very important in today's society, more so than ever. So we appreciate your double tap session. You've done very well on that. Now, I don't know how Wonder Woman exits. I know how she enters now. Grand entrance. I guess it's the twirling of the rope or the whip. I don't know how it is, but there's, I'm sure, a way how Wonder Woman does a spectacular exit, just like she did a spectacular entrance. So
I'm already gone, and you don't even know it.
Just like that, she was gone. What's up next? Episode 53, Policing the Police. It's been my pleasure to be your host, Raider Cop Nation. Alpha Mike signing out. Be safe.
Someone level with the heart. 4323, just 1322.